Good morning, church. Good morning. Great to see you this morning. I hope you're here to worship and praise the Lord. Would you stand and join us as we sing, Open Up the Heavens.
Look in the pew in front of you. We got a couple things for you. Number one, you got this card right here. This is for you. Got some different info on the church, some contact information. If you have any questions about any of the different ministries that we have here, this is a great way to be able to read that and send us a message, an email, anything like that that we can do to be able to answer those questions for you. And also there's a Bible right there. If you don't have a Bible, that is yours. We want you to be able to take that home and have that in your house. Also, when you came in the door, hopefully you got a bulletin. On the side of that bulletin is a little tear-off just like this. Please do us a favor and fill that out. Put it in the offering plate when it comes around towards the end of the service, because what we would like to do is just send you a gift. We have something that we want to send to you, just to let you know we appreciate the fact that you visited with us today. And again, church family, right there on the bottom, it says prayer request. If you know anybody who needs prayer, you know anybody who needs a phone call, something, do us a favor, write that down right there. We're going to do our best to be able to love and serve that person that you write down this week. So again, if there's somebody that we need to be reaching out to and touching as a church, please do us a favor. Assume we don't know and put it on that sheet right there and let us know this week, okay? All right, First Baptist folks, here's what I want you to do. I want you to find somebody that you haven't talked to yet, maybe a face that you don't recognize. Tell them who you are, introduce yourself, and tell them you're glad they're here. Good now.
that He is good. Amen. Sing this one. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like Speak to him this morning. Whatever you came into this room with, whatever burden or concern that you may have had, he just wants you to lay it on the cross before him. Don't miss this opportunity. Father, we are so weak. You are so strong. Lord, help us to humble ourselves before you, to understand what worshiping you really is. It's not about the songs we sing, but Father, it's about the heart. It's about the condition of our heart. And knowing that we've committed all that we have before you, to not hold anything back, to surrender all of our ugliness, all of our insecurities, all of our shortcomings before you, Father. And knowing that you care. As our Heavenly Father, you care beyond measure. And that you love us. Father, help us to understand that. To know that your love is greater than all these things. And all you want us to do is surrender. Thank you for being such a jealous God. That you would love us that much. We praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, if you guys Bible, go ahead and open to Acts chapter 20. While you're doing that, parents, I want to show you something. Your kid's going to get this sheet right here in Children's Church. What it is it's simply a little maze, and it talks a little bit about Paul's missionary journeys. We are coming to the end of Paul's last missionary journey, his third journey, that he went on through Asia Minor and through that part of the world. Here's what I want you to do. They're not going to do this in Children's Church. They're going to be given this when they leave. You are to do this with them. You were to walk through this maze with them. Getting through the maze would be easy. The point of it is to talk about what Paul did, the reason that he did it, and his goal and his purpose and all that. And if you don't remember that, don't worry about it. We'll talk a little bit about it this morning. So again, this is your homework for you to do with your kids so that you can kind of engage with them about what we've been talking about here in Big Church, and we can kind of connect with what's going on there with them and in their life. So again, parents, your kids will get that when they live Children's Church. I want you to be aware of that. All right, go ahead and open your Bibles to Acts chapter 20. Acts chapter 20. Now, while you're doing that, I want to ask you a question. A little bit of church knowledge here. When somebody visits a church, let's say we have a first-time visitor, maybe somebody's here visiting for us with us today for the first time. Why do you think, study after study that has been taken in the church, why do you think they tend to come back and stay and become a part of a church body? Some people say it's music. It's because of the music. They loved the music. The music was wonderful. It was either traditional like they like, or contemporary like they like, or whatever. It may be the programs. Oh man, they had great senior adult programs, so they had wonderful children, youth programs for my kids. They may say it's the preaching. I don't know about that here, but sometimes they say that the preaching is the reason they come back. All those answers are wonderful, and all those can be positives, and all those answers can help in it. But over and over and over again, the answer to why somebody comes back and why they get connected into a church is real simple. It's relationships. It's relationships. It's other people. We can use music to reach people with the gospel. We should be using worship to reach lost people with the gospel. We should be using worship to encourage and engage one another. Hopefully the preaching and the teaching and the ministries and all those things that we do for the fact of being able to love each other, to serve each other, to reach people in our community that don't know Christ. But the thing that's going to get people to stay, and the thing that's going to get people to connect, it is relationships. It's relationships. And you've heard me say it before, and I'll continue to say it. We are built by God for relationship. And study after study after study, it is shown that people who are in healthy relationships, their health is better, their physical health, their mental health, their emotional health, and I believe both, and their spiritual health, you can put that in there as well. When we are in healthy relationships, it makes us better people. It makes us happy people. People literally live longer who are in good relationships than those who isolate themselves from other people. Relationships is a lot of what church is about. And when we get to Acts chapter 20 right here, what we are starting to see is that Paul is ending this last missionary journey. And he's talking with these group of folks that he has invested years and years of his life, literally almost beaten to death for loving these folks. And we're going to examine this relationship, because here's the thing that I guarantee you, I don't have to explain to you. Relationships can also be difficult. They can be problematic. Sometimes the people we love the most can hurt us the most. Sometimes relationships can push us to make us see who we really are and what we can really absorb and what we can really invest into other people. Relationships are wonderful about helping us see what our actual purpose for this life really is. And who really comes first, me or everybody else? See, and this is where we get Paul and these leaders in the church of Ephesus. Now we're going to start in verse 24, so you can kind of flip over to verse 24. But I don't want to skip back through the first part of Acts 20, because there's an interesting story here in like these first 20 verses of Paul. Listen, if you guys think I preach long, be thankful Paul doesn't pastor this church. Because in Acts 20, Paul was preaching so long, he preached all day long, that it got into nighttime, and he was preaching all night long, and one of the youth was sitting in the windowsill. And he was preaching all night long, and I don't know if Paul was monotone. One of these guys that speak like this, and the tone of their voice never changes, that kind of thing. I try to get a little bit loud, a little bit soft, just at least some of you, I see your head doing that, kind of wake you up a little bit. It was getting late, and this young man, hey, to his credit, he was still there, he at least stayed. I don't know if his mommy and daddy were there and made him stay. Yeah, that happens sometimes, students. Our parents make us stay at church. And the kid fell asleep, fell out of the windowsill, fell, the scripture says, 3 stories, and hit the ground, and he died. And he died. See, I promise you it'll never get that bad. Just don't sit up there, and we'll be fine. And it says Paul goes down. Paul prays over the kid, and the Lord, not Paul, please understand what the text says. The Lord, not Paul, raised this kid back to life. And it said, and the reason I bring that up before we get into this, because it sets the stage for what Paul means to these leaders. How important Paul is to these leaders. And when we go through this, if you got your bulletin, you can follow along there. We're going to look at 4 characteristics of Paul's final words in Ephesus. And here's what it's not about. It's not about just learning the text. It's not about just learning the content of what Paul said. But here's what I want us to see. I want us to see the relationship behind what Paul was saying. Especially when we get to the end. When we see the emotional reaction that these men have with Paul. It says the text, I think it says hug, we're going to look at it in a minute. They literally throw themselves on him and they start kissing him in the face, and they are grieving and they are sad. There's an emotion behind it. And listen, I'm an ordained and licensed Southern Baptist minister. I grew up Southern Baptist. But do you know that it is okay for us to have emotion in church? It's perfectly fine. It's perfect. Now, listen, if you just got to just snot, cry, and face running, we'll take you out and we can do that in the hallway. But it's okay to have emotion in church. It's okay to be grieved. It's okay to be joyful. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to have emotion in church. It's very biblical. Because what I want us to see when we look at this is this relationship that Paul has, and the beauty of it, and the foundation that it gave for the church in Ephesus to be one of the pillar churches in the early New Testament. So if you got your bulletin, follow along with me. The first one is pretty simple. Paul starts at the beginning. Number one, Paul gives his purpose and his mission. His purpose and his mission. Like I said, he begins at the beginning. He starts in verse 17, kind of walking through how the early church started and how this church in Ephesus started and what he invested into them and what they had invested back into him. And now they've gotten to the point where Paul, he's about to go back to Jerusalem. And here's the scary part about that. Is that everybody in the room, they all knew that if Paul went back to Jerusalem, they were going to kill him. They were going to kill him. It was kind of one of those unspoken things that we're not going to talk about it, but we all kind of know it kind of things. So Paul begins this conversation talking about his purpose and his mission for them, and his purpose and his mission on this earth. Look at verse 24, because he really sums it up in one verse, verse 24. He says, "But I do not consider myself of any account." That word myself literally means my life. "I do not consider my life of any account as dear to myself, so that I may finish my course and the ministry which I received from the Lord Jesus Christ." Again, what is his ministry? "To testify solemnly of the gospel of the grace of God." Now, Paul begins this kind of farewell speech. It's not really a speech, it's more of this conversation that he's having by reminding these leaders, listen guys, I want to remind you of why I'm here. I want to remind you of what's happening. Because throughout the book of Acts, he constantly reminds them of his road to Emmaus and him being called by Jesus to take the gospel to the whole world. To not just his little people group, but to people who don't look like him, don't talk like him, don't think like him, who don't worship like him, to be able to take the gospel to the entire world. He said, listen, that is the purpose that Jesus gave me. And what I'm supposed to do is real simple. I got to share the grace of God to sinners. That's what you called me to do. To share the grace of God to sinners. Remember, grace is when we receive stuff we don't earn. And there ain't a person in this room. Well, my grandfather used to put it, there ain't a ne'er person in this room that don't need the grace of God. If you're sitting in this room and you've never made a mistake, and you lived your life perfect, and you never needed other people in your church family to love you and serve you and invest back into you, let me go ahead and take this mic off and hand it to you now, because you're more equipped to preach than I am. Because I'll tell you right now, I am just as much of a sinner in the hand of an angry God as anybody else in this room. And Paul said, that's my job. That's my purpose. Is to go around the world and to tell people about the grace and forgiveness of Jesus. You see, Paul had been on 3 massive missionary journeys. He's taken through most of that part of the world. And when he gets back to Jerusalem, he's going to begin this trip to Rome. And if you read through the book of Romans, you see he writes the book of Romans to send to the church in Rome to tell them, hey, I need your help because you're going to be my halfway point because I want to go to Spain. Spain was the uttermost tip of Europe at that time. And he said, I'm going to take the gospel. I've already been this way as far as I can go. Now I'm going to go this way. And I'm going to need your help. Because it is my purpose, it is my mission to take the gospel around the world. See, what does this have to do with relationships? It's pretty simple. Healthy relationships begin when we understand our purpose and our mission. Having healthy relationships in our marriages, in our church, with our kids, in the places where we work, having healthy relationships begin when we look here. See, the mistake we make is, well, I can have a healthy workplace if all these people that I work with would just straighten up. You know, me and my kids can get along great if my kids would just do this. No, I really would love church if those people that sit on the other side of the church could just do what I say the way I say they should do it. The problem with that is that's not where healthy relationships begin. They begin by looking here. They begin by knowing and understanding what Paul knew and understand. That it starts with understanding personally. What is my purpose? What is my mission? Why am I here? It's not about fixing other people. It's not being that self-appointed judge to point out what everybody else is doing wrong, what they've messed up, and what they're not doing correctly, but just looking in the mirror, starting there. What can I do? Here's a crazy thought. Maybe I'm the problem. But I know we don't want to say that, do we? Here's just a shot in the dark. Maybe I'm the one causing the drama. Maybe I'm the one throwing the monkey wrench in this thing. See, that's why purpose and mission is so important when it comes to relationships. And that's why Paul's so successful in his relationships, because he always understood what his mission was, what his purpose was. It was the gospel. It was simply the gospel. Now he moves on to number 2, because he understood that, yes, when he got to Jerusalem, he probably was never going to see these folks again. And when he left, there were going to be some issues. That brings us to number 2. Paul gives his warning. He gives his warning. See, Paul knew that when he left Ephesus, that when he went to Jerusalem, he was probably going to be arrested. He may never see those folks again. And he knew that when he left Ephesus, when that leadership that he provided, when that was vacant, when that was gone, there was going to be a vacuum there. And he said, here's what's going to happen. When that vacuum of leadership comes, the wolves are going to come in. The wolves are going to come in. They're going to come in from outside and they're going to come in from inside. And they're going to try to fill that void. He says, you're going to have to deal. You're going to have to be aware. You're going to have to watch what happens. Look at verses 29 and 30. Verses 29 and 30. He said, I know that after my departure, savage wolves will come in among you, not sparing the flock. And from among your own selves men will arise, speaking perverse things. Why? To draw away the disciples after them. He says, listen, it's real simple. When I leave, folks are going to come in and they're going to try to draw you away. They're going to come in from the outside. They're going to try to distract you from the outside. And you got to be aware. They're also going to pop up from within us. People who we think maybe are friends, our leaders, our mentors, folks that we love, folks that we really respected. All of a sudden, they're going to pop up and they're going to try to draw us away from what we know is right, what we know is the truth. Listen to what he says in verse 31, because I love what Paul does. He doesn't just bring up a problem. He gives them a solution. And in verse 31, he gives the solution. Listen to what he says. He says, therefore, because of this, therefore, be on alert, remembering that night and day, for a period of 3 years, I did not cease to admonish me to teach and guide, each one with tears, with passion, with energy, with effort. Paul invested himself into these leaders so that one day, when those wolves come, that they could be ready. We said, here's the thing that you have to do. It's real simple. It's the phrase, you have to be on alert. You have to pay attention. That phrase literally means have wide eyes. You got to have wide eyes. You got to be paying attention. You ever had a kid who had too much sugar? And you can tell them eyes get real big? Like, oh goodness, here we go. Man, they're just bouncing all around there. That's what this phrase, be on alert, it literally means to have wide eyes. It means to pay attention. In the context of football, it means to have your head on a swivel, to be constantly looking around. This last Thursday, we had the FCA camp at the high school. And man, I appreciate you guys that helped sponsor some of these kids because we had over 200 players show up to this camp. And if you still want to sponsor, we're going to take them up through today. It's $10 a kid. Sponsors $10 a kid for this camp. But one of the things that we talked about with these kids is they're out there playing, they're throwing the ball around, and we tell them, listen, you better pay attention. Because as soon as you're out here and you're just kind of getting comfortable, and you're just kind of standing around, the boys from Springville got some big old corn-fed white boys. And they're going to put you on your backside if you don't pay attention. Constantly teaching these kids to pay attention. Watch what's happening around you. Listen, that's exactly what Paul is telling the church right here. You have to pay attention. You have to be on alert. And when it comes to our relationships, we have a tendency to get complacent and comfortable. We think we've arrived to a safe place. A place where we can take our guard down and not be alert. And Paul is warning them in the church, don't get there. Don't get there in your church where you think you've arrived, where you think you're comfortable, where you think you can just sit and enjoy. Because as soon as you do that, guess what we stop doing? Being alert. We stop having the wide eyes and looking around and seeing what's coming. Paul said, man, I know they're coming. It's going to happen. He spent 3 years teaching, 3 years guiding. 3 years he invested into them, teaching them the Word of God, guiding them, so that now, you know what they can do? They can make decisions on their own. So they don't need Paul there with them all the time. So that they are self-aware. And they can be able to make the wise decisions on their own. Under the guidance of the Holy Spirit. He said, man, you got to pay attention. It's the same way in our relationships. It's the same way in our church. It's the same way in our relationship with our kids and our spouses and where we work and here in our church family. And we've got to be alert. We've got to be aware. We've got to have wide eyes. Because what does he call them in verse 30? He says those savage wolves. Brother, they're out there. They're out there and they strike and we're not looking. So the second thing he says is he gives them this warning. He gives them a warning because number 3, Paul gives them his commission. He tells them their job. Because if you're going to do your commission, if you're going to do your job, what you've been called to do, you got to be alert to do it. And I love the leadership of Paul. Because being the good leader that he is, when he leaves them this kind of last commission, this last command, this last thing he wants them to do, he doesn't leave any ambiguity to it. There's no guessing. There's no wondering. There's no what did he mean by that? Paul is very clear in what he tells them they need to do. Look at verse 35. This is the job of that church in Ephesus, and guess what? It's the job of this one as well. Look at verse 35. He says, in everything I showed you that by working hard in this manner, you must help the weak and remember the words of the Lord Jesus, that he himself said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. It's real simple. Church, what's our job? Is it to fill the pews for people? Is it to meet the budget every year? Is it to have the most exciting programs? Is it to have the most dynamic worship? Or the most charismatic speaker? That's not going to happen for you. But is it those things? No. You know what the job of our church is? Help the weak. That's it. Just help the weak. Help the physically weak. Help the spiritually weak. Help the emotionally weak. We are surrounded by people who don't come in the walls of this church who are weak right now. They're struggling. They need help. And it is our job as a church to help those people. And listen, I get it, I understand. I understand that a lot of people who are weak, they're weak because they put themselves in that position. You know, last week there was a guy who was outside of Walmart, and he's holding up a sign, and he was wanting to work and make some money and that kind of thing. I didn't have any work for him, but and he said something to the effect of being hungry and he needed to work. So I just went to McDonald's, got a couple of $1 hamburgers, and took them to him. I'm not going to give the guy money. I'm not saying take somebody like that, put them in your car, run to the ATM, and give them a bunch of cash. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if a guy's hungry, give him a doggone hamburger. You know what? He probably was on drugs. He probably did make a lot of mistakes and put himself in that position. Is it my job to judge those things? Now, if he comes and sits down in my office and we have a counseling time, we'll walk through that stuff. But in that moment, you know what it was? There was a hungry guy and there was a McDonald's 50 feet away, so I went to McDonald's and got him a couple of hamburgers. See, it's our job to help them. Whether it's spiritual, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, whatever it is, that is our job to be able to do that. We make a mistake in churches sometimes, and we become so comfortable and so used to what we do that we become this collection of consumers. We want to consume the music we like. We want to consume the preaching we like. We want to consume the right programs that we like. We want to consume, and it is, I am coming to church to be filled. I have no problem with that. But if all you do is come and get filled and you never go do, guess what you're going to do? You're going to get fat and have a heart attack. We consume so that we can go do. We consume so that we can go be the gospel. So we can go help the weak in our community. See, that's all he calls them to do. He said, listen, just go love people. He says at the beginning of the verse, listen, you saw me do it. He said, I showed you. I showed you how to do it. That's one of the things I like about Paul, is he never asked anybody to do anything he didn't do himself. He said, I showed you how to do it. And it takes a lot of hard work, but you can do it. And he says, also remember the words of Jesus. Remember the words of Jesus. The last part of that phrase is an actual quote from Jesus. When Jesus says, it is more blessed to give than to receive. Is there a better summation of what a Christian is supposed to be than that? The people who live their life to give and not receive. The people who live their life for the glory and honor of Jesus and not self. Man, that's a key to a relationship. When we exist in relationship to give. I cannot stand that phrase, relationships are 50-50. That's garbage. Do you know that that's absolute garbage? Relationship is 100% you doing everything that you have to do. Your mission, your purpose, your passion. Everything God's given you, 100% invested into it. And whether or not your partner, your church, your community, your job, your boss, whether they do their 100% between them and the Holy Spirit. We're just called to give our 100%. Jesus didn't say it's blessed to give and to receive 50-50. He said it's just blessed to give. You want to live a good life? You want to have healthy relationships? Be the giver. Be the one that gives. See, that's his commission. And it leads to the last one before I'll be done. Paul gives us goodbye. He gives us goodbye. Look at verses 36 through 38. I want us to see this because I want us to see the humanity in what's happening here. Verses 36 through 38. It says, when he had said these things, he knelt down and prayed with all of them. It said they began to weep. And this word weep, it means a loud outcry. They began to weep aloud and embrace Paul. The word embrace means literally fell on his neck. They fell on him. They held him down. The students understand, they dogpiled him. They jumped on top of him. They didn't want him to leave. They embraced Paul and repeatedly kissed him, grieving, especially over the words which he had spoken, that they would not see his face again, and they were accompanying him to the ship. Now, this is obviously a hard time for these leaders, because they knew what was coming. Paul spent years there, passionately serving these leaders, literally in tears, with such passion, serving these leaders. And now he's telling them, hey guys, it's time for me to go. I'm going back to Jerusalem. I'm going to go worship on the Passover. And if they kill me, they kill me. But I'm going back to Jerusalem, and I'm going to celebrate the Passover, and they're not going to stop. Meaning the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem. And they knew Paul meant what he said. And they knew he was going to go back, and they knew they were probably going to kill him. Now look at the beginning of verse 38. There's a word right there that I absolutely love. It's the word grieving. The word grieving literally means suffering pain. suffering pain. And here's the beauty of what we see. Here's what I want you to catch. There is a fundamental difference between feeling sympathy for someone and empathy for someone. Sympathy is when you understand what you're going through. When you understand what they're going through. I understand. Yeah. Oh man, I feel bad for them. What's the go-to phrase in church? We will pray for them. We'll pray for them. You know what empathy means? You don't just understand it. You literally feel it with them. You feel that pain they're going through. You feel that hurt. You feel that dejection. You feel that pain, that sorrow, that grieving that they're going through. You literally feel that grieving with them. See, sympathy is easy. Sympathy allows us to stay at arm's length. Especially for us men. We are really good at sympathy. We are really good at cognitively understanding what other people are going through, but making sure we stay at arm's length so that we don't get emotionally invested in what somebody else is going through. Well, we were literally creating non-profit organizations. I understand it, and I get what they're going through. We're going to raise money, we're going to fix it, but I'm not going to get emotionally invested in what these people are going through. See, the reality of the Scriptures calls us not just to feel sympathy for people, but to feel empathy for them. To hurt when people hurt. To feel pain when they feel pain. To go through it when they go through it. Here's the deal. 9 times out of 10, I've been a pastor for almost 20 years now, from youth ministry up into being a pastor, senior pastor. And here's what I've understood. 9 times out of 10, nothing you say will make them feel better. You probably won't be able to say anything. There's no magic verse, there's no magic prayer, there's no simple little thing you can say that'll make them feel better. But you know what you can do? You can empathize with them. You can walk through the pain with people. See, that's what they were literally doing with Paul right here. They were empathizing with him. They were hugging him. They were loving him. They were grieving. They were weeping. They walked with him all the way to, literally to the edge of the ocean. When he got on the ship and went through the Mediterranean back to Jerusalem, they walked with him through the whole thing. This world is full of sympathetic people. But what we must be as a church is empathetic people. People who are willing to get invested into the emotional state of other people. Because you know what that is? That is discipleship. That is discipleship. That's what Jesus did. I remember growing up in a church and we used to do discipleship training every Sunday night. And nothing against the way it went down, nothing against. But here's what I noticed as a student and as a kid. This is just like Sunday morning. We would come in, we would sing a few songs, do a few announcements, so-and-so's in the hospital, so-and-so's sick, the pastor would give a different sermon. But this time he wasn't wearing a tie, he was wearing a polo, so it made it more relaxed, I guess. And that was supposed to be discipleship. It wasn't discipleship. It was a Sunday night worship service, which is great, which is fine. Nothing against that, but you know what discipleship is? One-on-one. One-on-one. Jesus went beyond the 12 down to 3. You know, he picked the 12, and one of those 12 wasn't even faithful to him, and he went down to the 3, Peter, James, and John, and he invested himself into those 3. You see, that's what discipleship is. When Jesus says, go therefore into all the world and to make disciples, he's not talking about simply just having worship services. He's talking about us as believers in relationship, feeling empathy for those around us. For loving and serving the weak and the hurting and those in need around us. And is there a greater example in Scripture than Jesus? If there's anybody that's ever walked this planet that had the right to say, I told you so, is there anybody better than Jesus? But do we see anywhere in Scripture where Jesus said that? No. You know what he said? I forgive and I love. I forgive and I love. You see, there are going to be times in relationships when we are part of a relationship as a church and a community where we're going to have to go beyond sympathy. We're going to have to do exactly what we see right here in verse 38. We're going to have to grieve. And again, there may not be anything you can say. I got counseling books galore in my office. You can read them, but most of the time there's nothing you can say. But to just simply be beside somebody and feel it with them, to genuinely hurt and grieve with them, can be one of the most disciple-like things that we can do. Because church, when we, in a few months, you're going to hear about some things that we're going to be doing going into next year. That we're going to be ramping up outreach in this church. We're going to be ramping up, reaching people for the lost. We've invested a lot of money into fixing the infrastructure of this facility and doing some different things. You're going to be seeing some cameras going up here in a few weeks. We're going to start doing some stuff online and different kind of ministries that are going to be serving out there. Man, we're going to be ramping up outreach next year. But here's what I can promise you. None of it will work if we don't understand the value of relationship. If we don't understand the value of connecting with those individuals that God puts in our path. My dad passed away about 7 years ago. And the day when he went in the hospital, I was in Virginia. I was in school in Virginia. And I never did get to say goodbye. We never did get to have any final words to each other. I was in Virginia. I was going to school, and I was trying to finish up my doctorate. I only had so many opportunities to be able to do what I needed to do. And man, I was praying through it, and Abby was giving me updates. And finally, on Friday morning, I said, I got to go. I talked to the professor. He gave me an excuse to be able to leave. Man, in the middle of Lynchburg, Virginia, which is in the middle of Virginia, I drove from there all the way down to Birmingham. By the time I got to the hospital, he was already in a coma. He was intubated and couldn't talk. I got to be there when he passed away. My dad's last conversation was about college football. Go figure. You have no idea when you're going to have your last conversation with somebody. When that's going to be the last opportunity that you're going to have to get to be able to empathize. To get to be able to have that intimate conversation. Now, I'm not saying be that guy that makes everybody uncomfortable every time you see somebody, you're crying, and you're hugging, and you're loving. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is understand the importance of relationship. Understand the importance of what it means to be connected with people in our community that don't know Christ. That they may like the music. We may use the music to reach people. They may like the programs that we have and all the different things that we're going to be doing next year. Out serving there instead of just building here, but serving out there. But you want to know what's going to make them a part of the First Baptist family? It's relationship. It's what we see when Paul and these leaders right here. It's understanding our purpose. It's understanding our mission in this community. It's being aware, being alert, watching for the wolves. It's seeing those who are in need, those who are hurting, and feeling true God-centered, Christ-centered empathy for the hurting. Now, we're going to have our time of invitation here in a minute. And if you're here this morning and you're not sure whether or not you understand what I'm talking about, I'm talking about the forgiveness and grace and mercy of Jesus. Then do not leave this place until you do. The one thing that gives me a little bit of calmness and ease when it comes to that life, knowing that I never got to say goodbye to my dad, was the fact that I really didn't. It wasn't goodbye. It was see you later. Because my father was a faithful follower of Jesus, and I know that one day I'll get to spend eternity with him. Make sure before you leave this place, you're confident in the fact that you're going to spend eternity with Jesus. But if you're here this morning and man, you need some empathy. You need a church family to love you and serve you and be here with you. And just like these believers were walking alongside Paul all the way to the edge of the ocean. Man, we would love to do that with you. But let's all remember when we leave this place to value those relationships that God's placed around us. Because it's in the midst of those relationships that true discipleship happens. And the glory and mission and purpose of Jesus can be known around the world.